Today, I'm going to share with you a story from my personal life. A tale so heartbreaking, so brutal, that I wouldn't wish it upon my most despised enemies. I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, in a family that was the epitome of the American dream. My husband, let's call him Jack, was an engineering prodigy who had climbed the corporate ladder with enviable speed. With his sharp intellect and impeccable work ethic, Jack had carved out a prosperous life for himself, and, by extension, for our family. His love for me was the kind they write songs about. He always knew how to make my heart flutter, even after all these years together and 3 beautiful kids. His loving demeanor extended beyond our relationship to our children. He was the perfect father, patient, loving, caring, involved, and, above all, always present. Our 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, were our pride and joy. Each had inherited the best of us, and every day they bloomed a little more, shaping into independent, kind, considerate individuals. I was a proud mother, a woman content with her life, filled to the brim with joy and love for her family. My parents, my foundation, were high school sweethearts. Have you ever seen those couples that, even after years of being together, still look at each other with the same sparkling passion as if they fell in love just yesterday? That was my parents. Their love was an unwavering beacon in our family, an embodiment of commitment and dedication. Unlike fairy tale families, we weren't without our fair share of troubles. Despite Jack's successful career, financial stress was something we weren't strangers to. The task of providing for a family of 5 and ensuring a safe future for our children was one of our primary concerns. Then there were the sibling rivalries. My siblings and I were like the shifting sands. Sometimes we were the best of friends, and sometimes we were at each other's throats. It was the usual ebb and flow of any sibling relationships. These rivalries were nothing more than tiny ripples on the surface of our otherwise harmonious family life. Every family has its imperfections, right? It's these imperfections that give a family its true character, its identity. We were just a normal family, with our share of laughter and tears, joy and sorrow, celebrations and setbacks. Little did I know that this seemingly normal life was on the brink of an unimaginable catastrophe. Our family, the fortress of love and kinship I held so dear, was about to face a storm that would threaten to tear it apart. My life, as I had known and cherished it, was on the verge of a heart-wrenching transformation. Stay with me, my Reddit family, as I unfold the chapters of this deeply personal and tumultuous saga. It's a journey that I took, a trial by fire that I survived, and an experience that made me the woman I am today. Buckle up, because the ride is about to get bumpy. Picture this: New Year's Eve, a time synonymous with joy, festivities, and the promise of new beginnings. There was an unspoken electricity in the air, a sense of anticipation for the year to come. It was on this night, amidst the fireworks that lit up the sky outside, that my world imploded. I had been out of town on a work trip, a trip that, fortunately or unfortunately, was cut short, bringing me back home earlier than scheduled. Taking a cab from the airport, I remember thinking how keen I was to kick off the new year surrounded by my loved ones. The house was silent when I entered, an ominous kind of silence that curdled my blood. I shrugged off my nagging instinct, attributing my unease to fatigue. But as I ventured further into the house, the sight that greeted me stopped me dead in my tracks and rooted me to the spot. My lovable husband, Jack, and my own mother were wrapped in a passionate grip that was both foreign and painfully familiar. They were locked in an intimate embrace, a moment that shattered my heart into a million fragments. Their locked lips and intertwined bodies painted a grotesque picture that, try as I might, I couldn't look away from. The icy chill that ran down my spine left me gasping for air. The throbbing in my chest intensified with each passing second, a painful reminder of the brutal reality unveiling before my eyes. My heart, once the cradle of love for my husband and my mother, was now the epicenter of unimaginable pain and betrayal. Summoning every ounce of strength, I confronted them. I stood tall, looking directly at them, my eyes seeking answers. And as they pulled apart, the look in their eyes was not of guilt or remorse, but one of cold indifference. That look cut through me deeper than any physical pain ever could. It was in that moment I realized the magnitude of their betrayal. The aftermath was nothing short of a nightmare that my family and I were living in broad daylight. Waves of chaos swept over us, wreaking havoc that threatened to shatter the very foundations of our existence. My father, who had stood like an unyielding pillar through thick and thin, was left broken. Seeing the man who was always our rock crumble was perhaps more heartbreaking than the betrayal itself. But as they say, when it rains, it pours. The revelations did not just stop there. Amidst the heated confrontation, another truth reared its ugly head. My brothers, the adorable twins, might not be my brothers after all. The timeline of the affair, the physical similarities between them and Jack, all the dots began to connect, revealing an even more harrowing reality. I had always prided myself on my ability to piece together puzzles. But this was a puzzle I wish I had never had to solve. With every piece that fell into place, the heartbreaking picture became clearer. The twins might be my sons, the product of this unspeakable charade. The weight of this potential truth was staggering, a punch so hard that it nearly knocked the wind out of me. The implications were colossal, not just for me, but for the twins. The kids who might just be a riddle wrapped in a mystery. Now, my Reddit family, I want you to take a pause, breathe in deeply, and visualize the gravity of the situation, the depth of the betrayal, the layers of the deceit, and the life-altering implications of these revelations. Try to imagine what it was to be in my shoes at that moment, to face the shocking reality head-on and bear its weight. In the aftermath of the confrontation, I was thrust into a vortex of legal battles and emotional turmoil. The storm that had set in was far from over. In fact, it was just the beginning of an arduous journey, a testing phase that was going to throw unimaginable challenges my way. The next logical step was an inevitable divorce. Jack and my mother had not only betrayed my trust, but had also shattered our family. It was a tough decision, one of the hardest ones I've ever had to make, but it was one that needed to be made. As I had feared, the divorce was not as simple as signing a piece of paper. It was a complex, overwhelming process, a legal maze that was exhausting to navigate. The courtrooms, with their cold, impersonal environment, the lawyers with their endless talks and negotiations, the constant paperwork that seemed to breed and multiply. It was all too much. Each hearing, each meeting, each document signed snatched away a piece of my heart. But the most unbearable part of it all was the custody battle. Our children, my innocent, beautiful children, were being dragged into a scandal they had no part in creating. They were caught in the crossfire, innocent bystanders in a war they did not want. My mother, who once held a reputable position as a children's pastor at our church, was stripped off her role. The church, a place of worship and peace, was rocked by the scandal. The local committee unanimously decided to relieve her of her duties, a decision that further added to our family's disgrace. The news spread through our small town like wildfire. Whispers turned into talks, and before we knew it, our family was the center of everyone's attention. We were once known for our unity and love, but now we were the favorite topic of town gossip and scandal. And just when I thought I had hit rock bottom, Jack dropped another bombshell. He confessed that the affair with my mother had started long before we were married, while we were still teenagers, living under the same roof. The revelation added a whole new dimension to the betrayal, twisting the knife that was already lodged deeply in my chest. Every single memory, every laugh we shared, every moment of togetherness was now tainted with the knowledge of their deceit. There was nothing to salvage, nothing to hold on to. The foundation of our relationship was built on lies, and it felt like I was sinking in quicksand, every attempt to free myself pulling me deeper into despair. But amidst all this, there was a strange, distressing sense of peace. The truth, as horrifying as it was out in the open. I was not living in a blissful bubble of ignorance anymore. I was facing the reality, the harsh, brutal reality, head-on. And as unbearable as it was necessary. It was my awakening, my moment of reckoning. I realized that there was a long road of healing ahead. The pain was far from over, each day bringing new challenges. But I knew one thing for sure. I was stronger than I had ever been before. Now, my Reddit family, Try to place yourself in my position. Imagine the depth of my despair, the severity of my heartache. It's not easy, is it? But I want you to take this journey with me, to feel my pain, and, in turn, draw strength from my resilience. Because despite everything, I was not defeated. I was not broken. I stood tall, ready to face the storm head-on. The aftermath of the confrontation resembled navigating a ship through a tumultuous sea. The scene was set for a storm that was relentless, a tempest that was unyielding. This was a new reality I found myself in, a reality filled with therapy sessions, ceaseless consultations with lawyers, and tension-filled family gatherings. It was a stark contrast to the once peaceful life I was accustomed to. Yet, in the midst of all this turmoil, I found solace in the unlikeliest of places. Therapy became a regular part of my routine, a safe haven where, for a few hours, I could let my emotions run wild without judgment. The therapist's office was a room where I could let my guard down, where I could unpack the feelings of betrayal, the hurt, the disappointment, and the anger, all under the watchful eyes of a professional. The sessions were grueling, emotionally draining. There were times when I would leave feeling more broken than when I walked in. But each session brought me one step closer to healing, to understanding, and to acceptance. Alongside therapy, there were the endless consultations with lawyers. Each meeting was a whirlwind of legal jargon, contracts, and paperwork. It was overwhelming, trying to understand the nitty-gritty details of custody battles, asset division, and alimony. The world of law was a maze, and I felt like a blind person traversing through it, grappling for any piece of understanding I could hold on to. The constant back and forth with the lawyers was mentally exhausting, a stark reminder of the reality I was now living in. Family gatherings, once a source of joy and warmth, had turned into a battleground, a hotbed of tension and unspoken resentment. Each meeting was a painstaking exercise in maintaining composure, of keeping the peace in an environment that was on the brink of eruption. The banal conversation masked underlying accusations and hurt. The smiles were strained, the laughters hollow, and the air thick with discomfort. My family, once my source of strength and love, had turned into strangers I shared blood with. Despite the crushing weight of everything falling apart, there was a silver lining. Amidst the turmoil, I found solace in the support of my Reddit family and my real-life friends. My extended family on Reddit, with their words of encouragement and shares of personal trials, provided a sense of comfort. The comment section, once a place of casual interaction, turned into a platform for collective strength, a testament to human resilience. My real-life friends, my confidants, were my pillars of support during my darkest times. The late-night consoling calls, the surprise visits, the shoulders to cry on, their constant presence was a beacon of hope, lighting up the path towards recovery. Their unwavering friendship reminded me of the beauty of human connection, of the power of shared sorrow, and the magnificence of unconditional support. There were days when life seemed too heavy to bear, when the weight of reality threatened to pull me under. Days where getting out of bed felt like moving mountains, and smiling felt like a Herculean task. On those days, existence was a struggle I faced every single day. But I couldn't let go. I couldn't give up. I had to hold it together, for my kids, who needed their mother more than ever. For my father, who had been thrust into a whirlwind of emotions he didn't deserve. And most importantly, for myself. Because if I gave up, if I let this situation break me, I would lose far more than just my marriage and family harmony. And so, I kept going, one day at a time, taking every hurdle in stride, celebrating small victories, and learning from the defeats. Every day was a new challenge, and every night was a new victory. Now, you must be thinking that this story, with its tumultuous journey and heart-wrenching truths, must end in a whirlpool of desolation and despair. But allow me to correct that notion. Yes, there were moments of profound sadness, times when it felt like life was bending me to the breaking point. However, on this arduous journey, amidst the trials and tribulations, I found something precious. I discovered my inner strength, my inherent resilience. In the face of insurmountable odds, I found myself. In the course of this process, therapy emerged as an invaluable tool. breaking down in front of a complete stranger was initially daunting. However, over time, these sessions transformed into a sanctuary, an oasis amidst the storm where I could express my deepest sorrows without judgment. With each passing session, I began reclaiming the fragments of my shattered self. Therapy not only assisted me in processing the trauma, but also equipped me with the tools necessary to rebuild my life. It encouraged me to face my reality, to embrace my pain, and to use it as a stepping stone towards healing and acceptance. It taught me about the power and significance of forgiveness, enabling me to not just let go of the resentment harbored towards Jack and my mother, but also to begin the process of trusting again. Learning to trust again was akin to learning to walk after a severe fall. It required patience, courage, and most importantly, the willingness to risk getting hurt again. Yet it was a crucial step towards rebuilding my relationships, especially with my children, and viewing the world through a lens of optimism and hope. My father, who had been thrown into the heart of this storm, was slowly but steadily recovering. Each day marked a small yet significant milestone in his healing journey. Like a tree weathering a violent storm, he stood firm, ready to sprout new leaves after the old ones had been ruthlessly ripped off. My children, too, were demonstrating incredible resilience. They reminded me of tiny saplings pushing through the cracks in a concrete floor, determined to reach for the sky. Their daily progress, their unfading smiles in the face of adversity, were nothing less than inspirational. They served as my beacon of hope, guiding me through the darkest days. To my Reddit family, if there's one thing you should take away from this saga, it's this. Life has a peculiar way of testing our mettle. It flings us into storms, pushes us into deep waters, and watches us struggle. But remember, it's during these trials that we discover our true strength. The key is to hold on, to grit your teeth and weather the storm, to fight back against the tide, and most importantly, to believe in yourself. Remember, after every storm, there's a rainbow, a symbol of hope and brighter days. And every experience, whether it's tinted with joy or drenched in sorrow, shapes us into the person we are meant to be. As the narrator of this intense emotional journey, I invite you to stay tuned for the upcoming chapters. This saga is far from over. As a family, we continue to navigate through the aftermath, picking up the pieces and rebuilding our world, one day at a time. I assure you, it's no fairy tale ending, but it's life in its raw, unfiltered form, bringing us surprises at every turn and teaching us invaluable lessons. I'm excited to share more of this journey with you, to grow with you, and to continue this incredible saga. The journey isn't quite over yet. Welcome back, dear Reddit family. We left off last time in the middle of an emotional maelstrom that had become my life. But as the old saying goes, no storm lasts forever. And this storm was no different. It brewed, it raged, it created upheavals, but eventually, it started to wane. I wish I could tell you that in the aftermath of the storm, our family found shelter and unity. I would love to paint a picture of resilience and collective strength, but if I did, it would be far from the truth. The aftermath of the affair and the revelations it brought in its wake didn't just sever the bonds of my marriage. It created fissures within our family. The family, once a cohesive unit, was now fragmented, divided. Some sided with me, their hearts echoing my pain and disappointment. They were appalled by the betrayal, their sense of right aligning them in my corner. They provided comfort, a support system that was my saving grace during the darkest of times. Others sided with my mother, trapped in the web of her justifications and rationalizations. Their loyalty, whether driven by blood or manipulated by her narratives, ended up in her camp. The family members who chose her side were like splinters under my skin, a continuous source of pain and resentment. Then there were those who decided not to choose sides. They were caught in the crossfire, torn between their love and allegiance for both parties. Picking sides for them was like choosing between two evils. Their neutrality, instead of diffusing the tension, further contributed to the palpable divide. The idea of our family, our safe haven, turning into a battlefield was a hard pill to swallow. Our family was sacred, a sanctuary where we found love, comfort, solace. It was a place where we had each other's backs, where we celebrated victories and comforted each other in defeats. But now, That very entity was the central theme of our pain. It was gut-wrenching, negotiating with the reality that our home, once a cocoon of love and trust, was now the breeding ground of betrayal. It was a cruel irony, one that was as painful to experience as it was difficult to accept. So, my Reddit family, as we continue this journey, we delve into the repercussions of the affair, how it tore apart our family, and how each member chose their path in coping with the aftermath. As these chapters unfold, you will witness the complexities of human relationships and the struggle to hold on to relationships so precariously hanging by a thread. It's a chaotic, emotional ride, but remember, it's through chaos that new paths are created, and it's through pain that new strength is found. So stick around. The journey is far from over. The search for answers was a journey I had to embark upon, not out of desire, but necessity. And what triggered this quest was the dreaded revelation of the most inconceivable betrayal. Jack, my stalwart companion, my confidant, the man I had gifted my trust to without a second thought, was at the epicenter of this destructive storm. And then there was my mother, my supposed bulwark of support, a woman I revered, standing alongside him. Their faces, once the epitome of love and trust, now veiled in a hideous guise of duplicity, left me reeling in disbelief. The question that sprouted sprang forth, unbidden and unrelenting. How does one grapple with the catastrophic knowledge that the ones you enthroned in your heart have the capacity for such duplicity? Driven by a desperate need for answers, I plunged into the intriguing labyrinth of my family history. Was infidelity an inherent family trait, cunningly cloaked in the fabric of our lineage? Could it be that I was merely fooled by the mirage of trust and loyalty, blind to the rampant deceit that seemingly flourished in our bloodline? I scoured through the age-old records, piecing together the jigsaw of my ancestors' lives. A disturbing pattern began to emerge from this familial tableau. Instances of marital infidelity peppered across generations, like weeds sprouting amidst a beautiful garden, tainting its splendor. The revelations were as shocking as they were abhorrent. The infidelity I had stumbled upon was not a sporadic event embellishing our family lore, but rather an insidious pattern etched deep within its core, passed down like some perverse inheritance. There were those amongst my kindred who, rather than denounce this deplorable trait, sought to justify it. Their words tried to paint it as a family trait, a character quirk tethered to our lineage. It was as if they tried to morph it into something benign, like the color of our hair or our innate love for music. But my disillusioned heart knew better. It wasn't an inherited trait woven into our DNA. Marital infidelity wasn't some inescapable fate sealed by our genetic code, but a deliberate choice. Yes, it was a choice that one consciously makes, a path they willingly tread upon. It was a decision that Jack and my mother had, with their full cognizance, embraced. Their choices ricocheted through me like a gunshot, leaving a trail of devastation. Each revelation, each uncovered secret, became shards of glass that tore me apart, inflicting wounds that ran deep. The familial betrayal that had once been a vague horror now morphed into a tangible monster, gnashing its cruel fangs in my face. Unsettling as it was, I continued to unearth the skeletons that lay concealed in my family's past. Yet, each discovery served only to deepen the abyss of confusion and hurt. The once cherished memories, the family laughter, the shared joy, the collective triumphs, all seemed to dissipate, leaving behind a haunting void. But through this harrowing ordeal, one truth emerged glaringly apparent, standing stark amidst the ruins of my trust. Infidelity wasn't a compulsive family trait. It wasn't a gene mutation etched in our bloodline. It was the result of a conscious choice, a reprehensible decision. It emanated from the depths of one's character, their moral compass, or the lack thereof. It was a path that Jack and my mother had chosen to tread upon, ensnaring not just their lives in its destructive path, but mine as well. And for every confusing, heart-wrenching revelation that I unearthed, this bitter truth was the only answer I could hold on to. I found myself embracing the inherent reality of my life's endgame. It was a jarring transition, to say the least, an oscillation between states of pandemonium and peace. The tiresome, relentless wheels of the legal process still churned in the backdrop, casting long, persistent shadows over my existence. The persistent battle for custody of my brothers was barely a skirmish in this ongoing war of attrition. The ceaseless labyrinth of paperwork was akin to an insidious vine, extending its insistent tendrils into every facet of my life, attempting to choke my sanity. But the draining court visits were the ever-looming specter, the dreaded milestones scattered on this journey. The cold, sterile environment, the sterile exchange of words, the piercing stabs of mistrust, and the constant pitting against those I once called family had turned into an eerie sort of routine. They were now a part of my life that refused to fade, standing as stark and imposing as a monolith, a constant reminder of the tumultuous shift my life had taken. Amid the stormy seas, however, I was beginning to discover islands of tranquility. It was challenging to locate them initially, lost as they were in the fog of chaos and confusion. Nevertheless, gradually, they emerged, shimmering beacons in the storm, offering much-needed respite from the turmoil and the relentless waves of apprehension. Moment by moment, I found peace weaving itself into the narrative of my days, like golden threads in a tapestry of gray. Slowly, the rest of my family was charting their recovery too. My father, the man who had been my lighthouse amidst the raging storm, was gradually regaining his lost strength. He had taken steps that he previously wouldn't have considered, ones that spoke volumes about his resilience and determination. He had joined a local support group, offering him an outlet for his pain and a haven where empathy and understanding were extended generously. He started therapy, facing his demons head-on, displaying a courage I had always admired. This journey was his baptism by fire, a test of his mettle, revealing a man of fortitude and resilience that he himself might not have recognized. As for my brothers, or perhaps more aptly, my sons, they were charting their own paths to recovery. Each employed his coping mechanisms, unique as they were, to navigate the treacherous waters of this predicament. They were finding their bearings, relying on each other, on me, and in the small triumphs marking our collective journey towards healing. As for me, I was getting there. The road was long, winding, and dotted with obstacles, but I was moving forward. I was savoring the victories, small as they may be, reassured by the knowledge that I was stronger than I had ever believed myself to be. Each day, each moment was a testament to the resilience I had discovered within myself. The adage, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," held a resounding echo in my life. It was a mantra I clung to, my lifeline in the darkest of times. Undeniably, the journey was far from complete, but I was no longer the person I was when it began. The path was daunting, the destination far off, but I was undeterred. I knew I had come a long way, and that gave me hope. As I bid adieu to my Reddit family for the day, there was a poignant message that I wanted to imprint on them. The world could be a dark place, the nights long and consumed by despair. But remember, as sure as the night, the sun will rise again. It will infuse the world with light, warmth, and hope. And when that dawn breaks, we will be here, standing strong and resilient. We will be ready to face a new day armed with courage, imbued with strength, and spurred on by an unyielding spirit. The journey might be long, the battles fierce and unyielding, but we are survivors. As long as the sun rises, there is hope. And as long as there is hope, we continually push forward, one step at a time, one day at a time, fueled by the undeniable strength each of us harbors within. Hi there, I'm Francine, a 42-year-old woman who, despite the twists and turns life has thrown at me, has managed to keep a grasp on happiness. My beacon of contentment, my partner in this whirlwind journey, is Rai. Married for 19 love-filled, sometimes challenging, yet fulfilling years, we've built a life and a family together that was, until recently, something straight out of a picture book. I was only 19 when I said I do to Rai. I was young, perhaps too young by some standards, but fiercely in love and ready to start a family. My confidence in our decision was reaffirmed shortly after our wedding, when we welcomed our precious daughter Libby into the world. Rai, at the age of 22, was a picture of an anxious yet doting young dad. His eyes, filled with unwavering love and support, promised adventures and a future where love and care were assured. He cradled Libby in his arms, and in that moment, I knew we'd make it through, no matter the obstacles. Fast forward a few years, we completed our family unit with the arrival of an amazing boy, Craig. His entrance into our lives brought with it an abundance of laughter, light, and unending joy. The bond we shared as a family tightened, and together, we weathered life's unpredictable storms. Today, both Libby and Craig are carving their own paths at colleges situated a hefty 5-hour drive from our home. Their departure left the house echoing with silence, a void filled only by the many memories we'd created together. Their rooms, though untouched, miss the chatter, the laughter, the sibling rivalry that once used to echo through our home. The past 2 decades of our life together weren't an uninterrupted fairy tale. It was a ride with its ups and downs, our shares of for worse, that somehow always led us back to for better. Starting a family young, setting up a home when we were still figuring out life had its unique challenges. But Rye and I faced them together, side by side, bolstering each other with love and understanding. Rye was, and continues to be, an astounding provider. His relentless dedication to our family saw us through the toughest of times. We built together a life of financial security and stability, a cocoon that safeguarded us from life's harshest storms. Yet as time passed, our once traditional marriage embraced an alteration. A few years ago, in a bid to spice things up and paint our life in vibrant colors, we decided on an unconventional plot twist. We opened our marriage. Yes, you heard that right. We mutually decided to allow each other the freedom to experience relationships outside our marital bond. In retrospect, we were like 2 adventurers, standing on the precipice of the unknown, ready to dive headfirst into uncharted territories. The decision was thrilling, exhilarating, a cocktail of emotions that was both intoxicating and terrifying. It was as if we had signed a new lease on life, an adventure we were ready to embark on together, hand in hand. Who knew that this step, meant to add a dash of excitement, would eventually churn our lives into a whirlwind of emotions and circumstances we hadn't foreseen? But that's a part of a later chapter. For now, let me take you back to the time when it was just us, navigating life, one day at a time. Life, as I've so often realized, is never short of surprises, both beautiful and otherwise. Enter Leonard. Leonard was, to put it mildly, an adrenaline rush. He was the embodiment of the thrill that Rye and I sought when we decided to add that twist to our marital plot. He was the forbidden fruit, the excitement of an open marriage, the intoxicating allure of something new. Leonard was a man of charm, his charisma palpable. There was an air of mystery to him that was both exciting and enchanting. He held my curiosity, my attention, with an effortless grace. His entrance into my life was a wake-up call, a reminder that the world outside of my picture-perfect family was in fact a vibrant palette of emotions and experiences waiting to be savored. However, as life often does when we least expect it, a curveball was thrown my way. After 15 barren years where the rustle of diapers and tang of baby powder had become a mere memory, I found myself faced with a sight that sent my heart both soaring with joy and plummeting with apprehension. Staring back at me from the pregnancy test in my trembling hand were 2 pink lines, an affirmation of life beginning in my 42-year-old womb. The reality of those 2 pink lines was a paradox. They filled me with a joy that was quickly shrouded by a labyrinth of confusion and guilt. 1,000 questions clouded my mind, my heartbeat echoed in my ears, and a truth loomed over me, a truth that was as uncertain as it was terrifying. Was this Rye's child? Was this a symbol of our enduring love, a testament to our vows of for better or worse? Or was it Leonard's? A token, a repercussion even, of my extramarital ventures? The dread of uncovering this truth, of revealing it to Rye, gnawed at me, its weight heavy on my conscience. With a sense of urgency that I'd never known before, I found myself considering a prenatal DNA test. It seemed like the only logical path to navigate through the fog of confusion that had enveloped me. The prospect of unraveling this complicated web, of confirming the paternity of my unborn child, was both daunting and necessary. However, the road was not smooth. It was pockmarked with hurdles that seemed insurmountable. The biggest of them all, procuring a sample from Leonard. A simple task at face value, but one fraught with implications, complications, and the potential for a fallout. Gathering the shreds of my courage, I decided to approach Leonard for his help. The task seemed Herculean, my resolve shaking like a leaf in the wind. My mind played out multiple scenarios, outcomes of the impending confrontation with Leonard. Will he agree? Will he shirk away? The answers lurked in the shadows, their ambiguity adding to my anxiety. As I stood at the precipice of this confession, I felt 1,000 emotions swarming over me. Excitement, fear, anticipation, remorse, despair, every single one battling for dominance. I was caught in a storm, one that was a product of my actions and decisions. But amidst this storm, I understood one thing clearly. Life was about to change. Whether for better or worse was a question only time could answer. Life, as they say, is often teetering on the edge of the unexpected. Anticipation gripped me as I prepared to reveal the news of my pregnancy to Leonard. His reaction, I had hoped, would at least shed some light on our predicament. Unfortunately, the illumination I sought wasn't a comforting glow. It was a lightning bolt that struck the very core of our existence. Upon learning about the pregnancy, Leonard's reaction was a far cry from what I'd hoped for. Rather than lend a supportive ear or a comforting word, he recoiled. His once charming azure eyes were now wide with disbelief and fear, a mirror of the panic festering within me. Leonard didn't just back away, he denied any responsibility. His words were sharp. They sliced through the air between us and landed like a punch in my gut. With venom in his voice and accusation in his eyes, he claimed I was trying to trap him. His once mellifluous voice now sounded like the hiss of a cornered snake, full of anger and defense. His response was a shock, a stark contrast to the man who'd been a part of my life, the man who'd been an exciting deviation from my otherwise predictable existence. Leonard refused to aid with the DNA test. His refusals were devoid of any inkling of the charm that had initially drawn me to him. They were cold, firm, a stark dismissal that left me feeling as though I was free-falling into an abyss. My fear, previously an insidious whisper, now roared in my ears, loud and terrifying. Panic gripped my heart, its icy tendrils seeping into each corner of my existence. The potential ramifications of Leonard's refusal were staggering. The foundation of my life, the bedrock on which Rye and I had built our world, shook violently, threatening to crumble beneath us. The once beautiful tale of our love story was morphing rapidly into a tragic Shakespearean drama. Our existence, once filled with the joy of family and the thrill of our open marriage, was quickly turning into a labyrinth of uncertainty and fear. The uncertainty surrounding the child's paternity weighed heavily on my consciousness. Every waking moment was plagued with questions, each bleaker than the last. Whose child was I carrying? How would this affect my family? The unknown seemed to be a malicious specter looming in the shadows, ready to pounce and shatter the illusion of normalcy that I desperately clung to. Leonard's antagonistic stance only added fuel to the raging fire. His accusations, his refusal, his sudden transformation into a man I barely recognized. It was all spiraling out of control. The world as I knew it, the world Rye and I had built together, seemed to spin on an unstable, uneasy axis. As I navigated this overwhelming storm of emotions, one thing grew increasingly clear. Our world was shaking. The very fabric of my existence, the threads that linked Rye, my children, and me, vibrated unsettlingly as we were thrust into a reality far from anything we'd ever known. The climax of our life was unfolding, not with celebratory fireworks in a clear sky, but with a violent storm in the darkest of nights. The certainty of a previously straightforward life was being replaced by unpredictable winds of change and uncertainty. It was a brutal shaking, a rattling of the cage we'd so comfortably inhabited. And as the bars of that cage bent and creaked under the pressure, I was left wondering if they would hold firm or give way, unleashing a fallout of a magnitude we'd never witnessed before. The aftermath of the climax was nothing short of a Greek tragedy. The engrossing drama that was my life had suddenly burst onto center stage, the spotlight casting harsh, exacting shadows that highlighted my every flaw, my every misstep. The once whispered rumors now bellowed across town, spreading like an aggressive wildfire, leaving destruction in its wake. Like the unforgiving tide, the reactions came fast and furious. My beloved parents, the two stalwarts who had stood by me through every challenging wave life had thrown at us, crumbled. Our bond, once sturdy and unyielding, was now as fragile as a spider's web, ready to tear at the slightest touch. In their eyes, where pride once reflected like the morning sun, there was nothing but a haze of disappointment and shame. They felt betrayed, their faith in the daughter they'd raised meticulously, shattered. Their disapproval was like a harsh slap in the face, bringing with it a surge of regret and self-reproach. The whole foundation of our relationship, built on trust and deep affection, was rocked and ultimately was razed to the ground. My children, Libby and Craig, who were my pride and joy, recoiled at the news. The spark in their eyes dimmed, their laughter replaced with silence. The revelation had cast a shadow over their innocence. The shock of their mother's actions, their family's predicament, was too much for their young hearts to bear. Meanwhile, Rai, my rock, was teetering on the brink of a monumental decision. His trust was shattered, reduced to a pile of rubble by the seismic wave of the revelation. The man who had stood by my side, my constant, my support, was considering divorce. Our decades of companionship, once a beautiful tapestry of love, respect, and mutual support, had been reduced to a contractual agreement, a pact that I had violated. The stability and harmony that we'd painstakingly built over the years was akin to a house of cards, a structure that seemed solid and steady, but collapsed with a single gust of wind. We were standing in the wreckage of the life we'd built together, the pieces of our fractured love story scattered around us like shards of a broken mirror. Ensconced in this tsunami of turmoil, I found myself grappling with a daunting task, telling Rai about the pregnancy, the potential addition to our family, but under the complex, torturous circumstances that had become our reality. The mere thought was like standing at the base of Mount Everest without an oxygen mask, an insurmountable task that left me gasping for breath. Leonard, meanwhile, remained aloof. His refusal to aid with the DNA test and his baseless accusations continued to throw salt on my fresh wounds. His indifference, his blatant disregard for the repercussions of his actions, were another blow to my already fractured world. The aftermath of my actions was a heavy cross to bear. The looming threat of an impending fallout, the disappointed faces of my family and friends, the guilt, the regret. It was a potent concoction of emotional turmoil that I was forced to swallow. My once tranquil life was now a storm-tossed sea, each wave threatening to pull me under into its dark depths. As the dust from the chaotic storm began to settle, the harsh realization of the aftermath took center stage. It was time to face the music, to step on the shards of the shattered glass of my life and find a way forward. It was time to navigate the choppy waters that were my relationships and try to make things right. Or at least try to. But in these turbulent times, was it possible to mend the bridges that my actions had severely damaged? Could I salvage the wreckage of my marriage to Rai, the beautiful structure we'd built over decades that was now a haunted heap of what once was? The questions echoed in my mind, their answers as murky as a foggy winter morning. The answer wasn't clear. It wasn't a simple yes or no. It was more complex, more convoluted, mirroring the intricacies of the situation at hand. The story of my life, the narrative that I'd been forging with every decision, didn't have a happily ever after. Not yet, at least. My actions, the choices that I'd thought were liberating, had led us to a crossroads. Our future, once a clear path stretching out before us, was now obscured by thick fog. We were left standing there with our past, present, and future hanging in the balance. But whether this was the end of the road, a tragic finale to our journey, or just a gigantic hurdle on the path, remained unseen. It was a question that haunted my every waking moment, a puzzle that needed to be solved through introspection, understanding, and perhaps even forgiveness. All I know is that my tale is not yet finished. It's a roller coaster ride of ups and downs, a story filled with twists and turns that rival a best-selling novel. Life, as it's often said, is a confusing maze of decisions and consequences. My story is a testament to this fact. It's an intricate labyrinth of emotions, revelations, and secrets. Each turn has brought forth a new challenge, a new question, a new reality to grapple with. The path ahead is one that I need to tread carefully, every step echoing with the weight of my decisions, my actions. As I navigate this labyrinth, teetering on the brink of despair and hope, I invite you to witness my journey. It's a journey of struggle, of confusion, of facing harsh truths and dealing with dire consequences. It's a journey that may, perhaps, lead to redemption. Witness my attempts to mend the bridges I've inadvertently set on fire, to restore the tranquility to the life that was once a sanctuary. Join me as I face each challenge that life throws my way, as I attempt to salvage what's left of my relationships, my marriage. Through this all, one thing remains certain. This is my life, my story to tell, my experiences to share. As uncertain and tumultuous as it may be, it's mine to live. The resolution, whether it involves mending bridges or severing ties, will be a defining moment in my life, another chapter in my increasingly complicated tale. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. Every bit of courage I had left was now dedicated to navigating the labyrinthine aftermath of my actions. But as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, a glimmer of clarity began to cut through the fog of confusion. The first bridge to mend was with my children. Libby and Craig, my source of unending joy, were grappling with the chaos that had descended upon our family. I decided to speak with them individually, hoping to repair the bond that our revelations had strained. With honesty and genuine regret, I explained my actions and asked for their understanding. The conversations were tough, raw, and laden with emotion, but they served as the first step towards healing. Although things wouldn't instantly return to normal, there was now a bridge of communication, a testament to our shared resilience. Next was Leonard. Despite his initial reaction, he agreed to meet. We sat in silence for what seemed like hours, the air heavy with unspoken words. I finally mustered the courage to confront him about his part in this chaos. While he didn't agree to aid with the DNA test, he accepted his role in the situation. It was a bittersweet victory, a small step towards closure, but a step nonetheless. The most daunting hurdle, however, was Rye. The love of my life, my partner, and my friend was estranged, his trust in me shattered. Our once steady relationship was a shadow of its past, but I refused to let go without a fight. I decided to approach a relationship counselor, hoping a neutral party would help us navigate our strained relationship. We attended therapy together, the sessions proving to be a gateway for dialogue and understanding. We bared our souls, our fears, and our insecurities, each session unearthing buried emotions. The painful process revealed a glimmer of hope. The remains of our love hadn't completely been swept away in the storm. Ultimately, the outcome of our relationship rested in the hands of time. Would our love, our shared history, and the raw honesty we'd shown each other be enough to rebuild trust? Or had the cracks in our foundation grown too wide to bridge? Only time could answer these questions. As I stand at this crossroads, I am reminded of the truth that life is a journey, not a destination. The resolution to my story may not be neat, it may not be the perfect ending I envisaged, but it is real, and it is mine. Whether it involves mending bridges or severing ties, I understand now that every step I take is a part of my journey, a tale that's still being written. The future remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. My story is not yet over. Through the ups and downs, the twists and turns, I've drawn strength from unexpected places. And as I continue to navigate the maze of my life, I carry this strength forward into the unknown.